Matthew muttered under his breath, his grip on the wine glass tightening as the crystal stem captured the ambient glow at Leti Jardan, one of Boston's priciest eateries, casting rainbow patterns on our immaculate white tablecloth. Across from us sat his mother Brooke, her lips painted scarlet and curved into a smirk that made my stomach turn. I steadied myself with a deep breath. After 15 years of marriage, I knew this would be a decisive moment. "I can't cover this dinner, Matthew. You know I've been helping my sister with her medical bills. I don't have $3,000 right now." In reality, I was quietly saving money for my exit plan, siphoning funds from my interior design job. Leah's cancer treatments were a legitimate expense, but they didn't deplete my resources as Matthew believed. Whenever he insisted I fund another lavish dinner or a designer suit, I tucked more into my hidden account. Always an excuse, Brooke interjected, twirling her wine. "Matthew says you're doing well with your decorating business. You can certainly afford to treat your mother-in-law to a special dinner." Her voice was dripping with the condescension I'd endured for years. Surveying the restaurant, I noted diners in their upscale attire, the soft classical music, and the perfectly arranged table settings. Everything about the place reeked of old money, Brooke's natural environment. She'd orchestrated this evening knowing exactly what she was doing. "No," I said firmly, my voice calm. The change in Matthew's expression was immediate. The mask of sophistication slipped, revealing his anger. In one swift movement, he flung his glass of Cabernet Sauvignon, and its contents splashed across my face, cold, staining my cream blouse crimson. Gasps echoed from surrounding tables, and Brooke's laugh sliced through the hush like a knife. "Pay for this, or our marriage ends," Matthew demanded, slowly wiping my eyes clear of wine. Surprisingly composed hands, I realized. 15 years of belittlement, financial manipulation, constant fear of missteps, all crystallized in this moment. I could smell the wine, feel it trickling down my collar, hear the murmurs of others, yet instead of shame, clarity rose within me. I stood, my chair scraping the wooden floor. "You're right, Matthew, it ends here." I reached into my bag for my phone, opening the camera to snap a photo before recording. "What are you doing?" Matthew sputtered, reaching towards me, but I backed away, camera steady. "Collecting evidence," I replied, my voice stronger than ever. "Want to throw something else? Care to explain to everyone why it's okay to assault your wife for refusing your mother's demands?" Brooke's smirk faded. "Ungrateful." Her words halted as the restaurant manager arrived, his demeanor somber. "Mrs. Harrison, you and your son must leave immediately." "Ma'am," he turned to me, "would you like us to call the police?" Matthew stood, knocking his chair over. "You wouldn't dare." "Still recording," I challenged. "Try me." What unfolded next shifted everything, not just my life but for onlookers and eventually in the legal realm. It emboldened women who later thanked me for my story. In that instant, I found my voice. With wine still dripping, I dialed a number that marked my new beginning. Yet, before I left, I faced the man who thought control and a glass of wine could break me. "Funny thing, Matthew. I've paid for this dinner, and everything for 15 years. My dignity, freedom, self, but no more. Check our joint account tomorrow for an enlightening read." His face showed recognition, not just because our marriage was ending, but I was reclaiming my life. The responding officer, Andrea Taylor, had kind eyes behind a stern look. As I detailed my statement at the precinct, the wine had dried to a dull burgundy on my blouse. "Mrs. Rebecca," I corrected. "Porter," reclaiming my maiden name. She nodded. "Rebecca." This wasn't the first incident. My hands clasped a lukewarm coffee cup, eyes on the breaking dawn, painting Boston in pink and gold. Sleepless, yet alert beyond years. "Wine throwing is new," I explained. Matthew favored more subtle means: financial dominance, emotional manipulation, isolation. "It's been 3 years since I saw my closest friend Claire. He convinced me she envied and plotted against our marriage, and I believed him. Despite the coffee's bitterness, his financial dealings were the piece de resistance. As my design ventures flourished, He systematically drained funds for emergencies, investments, familial duties, guilt me into providing more for our future, while instigating extravagant events I was expected to bankroll, constantly reminding me of the privilege in their world. I continued. Taylor's pen moved over the pad. Last night, you mentioned a joint account. A small smile formed. That was my safety net. 2 years prior, I started documenting everything: transactions, manipulations, incidents. I opened a secondary account, shifting small sums to build security, carefully avoiding suspicion. I also tracked Matthew's personal use of our joint account disguised as business expenses. The IRS would find interest in those records. That's why you recorded the restaurant? Andrea inquired. Partly, but mostly knowing Matthew would see the joint account today. Last night, while intimidating me at the restaurant, my lawyer executed paperwork prepared months in advance. The paper trail delivered to authorities included every questionable transaction, tax mishandling, and misconduct. Andrea studied me. You've been planning? Yes. 2 years, 3 months, 12 days. Setting the cup down with realization that the shame wasn't mine, it was theirs. My phone buzzed again. More messages from Matthew, from threats, then pleading to desperation. Showing Taylor, I narrated. He wrote, "Baby, let's fix this. I'll seek help. Don't end our creation." But what we built was imprisonment behind opulent walls. A knock brought us interruption. Another officer entered, heavy expression. "Miss Porter, there are visitors." Brooke, Harrison's lawyer, and brief hesitation. "Catherine Harrison, your sister-in-law." My heart skipped. A beat for Catherine, or Kate, known as the family dissenter, financially cut off 5 years ago for opposing their toxic dynasty. Our ties severed. Another of Matthew's arrangements. "Kate's here?" My voice wavered. Officer Taylor watched intently. "Would you like to meet them?" Rising, smoothing the stained blouse. "Yes, but you need to know something about Harrison's business. Something perhaps only Kate and I are brave or foolish enough to confess." Taylor raised a brow. "What is it?" "The real reason Brooke crafted last night's dinner. Her discovery of Matthew's embezzlement from their family foundation, and I possess proof of every transaction." As I approached the meeting room, a flurry of thoughts raced through my mind. Was I about to gain an ally in Kate? Or was this yet another scheme by the Harrison family? What I did understand was that the upcoming moments would determine my future, and perhaps the fate of many ensnared by the Harrisons' deceit. I took a deep breath, ready to face whatever awaited beyond the door. I had survived their worst, or so I believed. What Kate would reveal would upend everything I thought true about the last 15 years. Kate appeared as I remembered. Wild curls, no makeup, and a spark in her eyes the Harrisons had failed to extinguish. She was alone. Brooks, the lawyer, was absent. When our eyes met, she stood and hugged me, leaving me stunned. "I've seen the video," she whispered, recognizing my bravery. Gone was the lawyer. I'd requested time alone with my sister-in-law. Kate's smile was sharp as she said, "We don't have long." We sat at the table as Kate produced a worn leather notebook. When I was cast out, everyone believed it was because of my refusal to join the family business as another pawn. That wasn't the full story. She flipped through handwritten notes and what resembled financial records. 5 years ago, I uncovered something that led Brooke to ruin my reputation, while Matthew picked his side. My design business was involved, alongside other small ventures owned by Harrison spouses over the decades. Not once did they anticipate success for these businesses. Kate calmly revealed their grim reality. Brooke and Matthew have long orchestrated a plan: marry successful independent women into the family, then drain their businesses. My hands trembled under the weight of her revelation. The excessive costs, the lavish dinners, the enforced duty to family, it's a well-oiled machine. I pondered the Harrison wives I'd known, questioning how many had been victims of this scheme. "Why?" I asked, suspecting the response. "For power and control," Kate paused, "and money laundering. The family uses these failed ventures to cleanse funds from less legitimate enterprises." It struck me hard. Brooke's insistence on using my business accounts made sense. Now they wanted control of every financial move. You did what they hadn't foreseen, Kate said with a gleam. You kept records, built a safety net. Now they fear you. Realization dawned. Brooke orchestrated the dinner because she found out. An accountant named Malcolm had approached me, noticing discrepancies in how my business was treated. He aided my understanding of their conduct. Officer Taylor's entrance disrupted our thoughts. We've received a call from the hospital. There's been an incident with Leah. What kind of incident? Someone attempted to access her room under false family claims. Security intervened when they turned aggressive. Matthew, Kate, and I chorused, "We must hurry." Kate continued, "You ought to know more, but Leah, she's more than your sister." Leah had been a bookkeeper for the Harrisons before her illness. Rushing from the police station, a message pinged on my phone from an unknown source. You should have paid. Reaching the hospital, the harsh lights and stretched corridors seemed endless. My focus on Leah, the brave one, was unwavering. Before striking her floor, security blocked our way. The hallway was chaos, a cart overturned, medical supplies scattered, echoing the urgency of Leah's voice within her room. I rushed in and froze. Leah, alert and frail, faced Brooke Harrison and Malcolm Jones, the betrayer. "Rebecca," Brooke's voice stripped venom. "How nice of you to join our family chat." Leah's gaze met mine, with shared understanding. They'd try to silence her, sway her loyalties. Malcolm urged, "Perhaps we should discuss these misunderstandings, addressing the documents I'd amassed. The ones you assisted me in collecting?" I emphasized. Wasn't it Brooke's notion to aid and report? "It's not as simple," Malcolm began, but Kate interrupted. "Is it not, Malcolm? You identify threats and neutralize them, just as you've assisted in destroying numerous women's livelihoods." Brooke's facade cracked slightly. "Still investigating, Catherine? Would you reveal your motivations?" "My failed enterprises," Kate replied steadily. "Sabotaged because I defied your plans." Leah's grip surged. "Rebecca," she whispered, pointing to her bedside drawer. Within, a journal mirroring Kate's, older and filled with secrets. Exhausted, Leah raised her voice, noting that 3 years prior she had uncovered discrepancies in the records of several Harrison enterprises, not just the company she was employed at. As Officer Taylor blocked Brooke's path, Leah explained how she began documenting those findings in her journal. However, soon after, she started experiencing minor ailments like dizziness and fatigue. When finally diagnosed, Brooke's voice took on a dangerous edge, but Leah maintained a steady gaze, clarifying that she was simply stating facts. All the documentation she found was safeguarded with her lawyer, sealed with instructions for disclosure if any harm came her way. Malcolm attempted to leave, but Officer Taylor intervened, asking where he was headed. Events seemed to slow, with Brooke reaching into her designer handbag, Kate issuing a warning, and then it became clear Brooke wasn't wielding a weapon. She was reaching for her phone. Her voice cold as ice. Brooke declared, "Matthew, it's time for Plan B." The hospital lights flickered, then darkness enveloped us. Leah's startled gasp, Kate's curse, and the sound of footsteps echoed in the hallway. When emergency lighting restored visibility, Brooke and Malcolm had vanished, leaving behind Leah's medical chart with a startling new page. The revelations within the report would upend our understanding of Leah's condition and expose the depths of the Harrison family's secrecy. As I read the contents, my hands trembling, the grave truth behind Matthew's insistence on controlling Leah's treatment was evident. Dr. Emily Jones, a blessing with no relation to Malcolm, stood beside me as we reviewed the disturbing treatment protocols that should never have been prescribed, realizing it worsened Leah's symptoms under the guise of cancer progression. Leah added that Matthew had insisted on their family doctor, citing insurance coverage, minimizing my concern over her declining health. Meanwhile, Kate examined the new inflammatory page, seeing Leah's forged signature on a backdated liability waiver. Officer Taylor snapped photos while speaking into her radio, while additional officers gathered testimonies about Brooke and Malcolm's quick departure. Dr. Jones inquired about Leah's original physician before the Harrison-dominated treatment, prompting Leah to cite Dr. Anjali Patel, who had voiced unease at the switch. Yet Leah was more concerned about my entanglement with Matthew, who isolated us from allies while privately manipulating us financially. Kate asserted finding Dr. Patel was crucial for evidence of Leah's original health state, while Officer Taylor confirmed they're tracing the last known getaway vehicle's route. The mention of the lake house sparked my memory. It was where vital Harrison documentation was stored. But just as Leah tried to elaborate, she began coughing violently. Dr. Jones inspected her, expressing urgency for reversing the toxic medication's effects. Leah whispered that more than financial records were hidden in a painting she gifted me, a lighthouse, reminding me of the wedding day gift Matthew detested. Racing back, the realization struck. Matthew's recent message with a photo of my home office, minus Leah's painting, with the appalling taunt, "Did you really think I didn't know?" beckoning me to the lake house alone. Dr. Jones's voice, revealing Leah's updated condition, underscored the dire choice before me. Pursue Matthew or stand by Leah, potentially through her final moments. But Leah resolved that dilemma. Her forthcoming revelations shifting the narrative and providing insight into the Harrisons' desperations. She disclosed that Richard Harrison's supposed heart attack was no accident, but a calculated act she witnessed. She recounted the fatal evening, overhearing Richard's confrontational evidence against Brooke and Matthew regarding embezzlement, when Brooke intervened lethally. Leah documented evidence, hiding them in the lighthouse painting. Confronting Brooke then was dangerous as a threat loomed over me, her sister, compelling her into silence until their scheming reached my life. I now understood the stakes, as Officer Taylor's determined inquiry about the painting's contents proved crucial, with the need to gather evidence to counter the Harrison empire. Leah's fragile yet firm voice continuously reaffirmed the urgency of exposing the truth. Dr. Jones reviewed Leah's latest test outcomes. The new therapy is effective, albeit gradually. It's crucial to monitor her closely over the next 24 hours. My phone buzzed once more. Another message from Matthew appeared. 1 hour. Arrive solo or the painting and everything else you value will burn. Leah insisted, go. Dr. Jones and the police are with me. Kate can remain here. This must end. Officer Taylor cautioned. It's unsafe. We could dispatch a team to the lake house. No, I decided as a plan took shape. Matthew expects me alone, so that's how I'll go. But first, a call is necessary. I stepped into the corridor, dialing a number unused for 3 years. After 2 rings, a familiar voice replied. Rebecca, is it really you? Claire's voice stirred emotions. You once mentioned something amiss about Matthew, about the Harrisons. I need your assistance. You still work for the FBI's Financial Crimes Division, right? 20 minutes later, I was driving to the lake house. In my rearview mirror, unmarked vehicles discreetly trailed, with Claire's team coordinating with nearby law enforcement. My hands steady on the wheel. I rehearsed the plan mentally. While Matthew was fixated on Leah's artwork, he overlooked something pivotal. A discovery from the previous evening after I dared to unlock a drawer in Brooke's antique desk at their primary residence. The drawer's contents clarified their choice of me, their history of targeting successful women, and most importantly, the true destination of their assets. As the lake house loomed ahead, its silhouette stark against the setting sun, Matthew's car and Brooke's SUV were visible. Movement inside confirmed they awaited my arrival. Parking, I drew a deep breath, checking my phone once more. A message from Kate. Leah's stabilizing. We've located Dr. Patel, en route to the hospital with original records. Go and get them, sister. Approaching the house, an unusual calm settled over me. Though Matthew lured me into a trap, he had overlooked a crucial aspect of my identity. Before becoming Matthew's wife, a victim of their machinations, I was Leah Porter's sister, harboring my own secrets all these years. Lifting my hand to knock, my shadows stretched across the porch with the setting sun, uncertain of whether the confrontation inside would lead to ruin or redemption. Yet I bore a story, one about another concealed painting, a piece unknown to Brooke, poised to dismantle their empire. As I readied to knock, the door swung open, Matthew appearing. His usual polished demeanor slightly unraveling, a hint of expensive scotch, his father's brand, in the air. "Where is it?" he asked calmly, stepping inside. "Your sister's amateur painting." He gestured toward the living room where the lighthouse painting leaned against a stone fireplace. Brooke, in her favored armchair, appeared to chair a board meeting rather than a hostage situation. Malcolm Jones, pacing by the windows, anxiously checked his phone. "Amateur," I smirked. "You always dismissed it, never looking closely, too busy belittling anything from my family." "Enough games," Brooke interrupted sharply. "We know Leah hid documents inside. Hand over copies and we can negotiate." Studying the painting in the dim light, I mused. Leah's art captivated me. Her attention to detail, the layering like this lighthouse. "Did you notice there's another structure reflected in the water? It's slightly different, almost like..." "Like what?" Matthew demanded. "Like she painted two realities. One above water, visible to all, and one below, hidden but present," I replied, turning to face them. "Like your family." Brooke stood, her patience waning. "If you think..." "Richard noticed, didn't he?" I interjected. "The hidden truth, and that's why you killed him." Silence descended, Malcolm ceased pacing. "Did Leah tell you this?" Brooke's voice was icy. "That was her mistake. She won't live to regret," Brooke taunted. Keeping my composure, I retorted. "Actually, Leah didn't tell me anything. I knew already. Richard Harrison wasn't just consulting with Leah, he was building a case. Allies, including my father." Matthew stepped forward. "What are you implying? Your father died 12 years ago. Did he?" I unveiled a photo from my phone. This was a day before Richard's death, captured on Burlington's cafe security footage, I explained, showing Richard Harrison with my father. Documents spread between them. "Dad was a forensic accountant, tracking your family for years. When he got too close..." I let the words linger. Brooke's facade cracked. "You're bluffing." "Am I?" I countered. "Who taught me meticulous record-keeping and evidence-building?" "Dad did, before his murder. I've prepared for this, since the moment Matthew courted me. Did you ever suspect our charity gala meeting was mere coincidence, or that I was just the prosperous businesswoman you sought, Matthew?" His complexion turned ashen. "You knew all along? Aware of your truth, your family's targeting of successful women, ensnaring, depleting, destroying them. Leah wasn't just aiding my evidence gathering. She finished Dad's endeavor," I declared, moving to Brooke's chair. "Dad mentioned a hidden latch long ago, which Richard showed him," I said, accessing a concealed panel. "Richard didn't solely store evidence at the office. He kept the most compromising files here, in his wife's sanctuary, observing daily for the right moment. After his death, Dad assumed the role. Following Dad's demise, it was my turn. As exterior lights blazed and sirens wailed, Claire's voice echoed via megaphone. "FBI, the house is surrounded." Malcolm fled but encountered approaching agents. Matthew lunged for the painting. I countered swiftly, striking his jaw. Betrayal stunned him more than the blow. Brooke remained seated. Her expression was icy. "You won't win," she murmured. "You underestimate our influence." I placed a final photo in her lap. Her hands shook at the recognition. Richard and Dad, along with a third person, a young woman with wild hair. "Kate," Brooke gasped, "your own daughter." I nodded. "She didn't start investigating 5 years ago. She's been involved from the start. Her severance from the family, self-employment, her orchestrated business ruin. All to placate you, masking her true work." As FBI agents arrived with handcuffs, I picked up Leah's painting. "There aren't hidden documents," I stated. Leah's art was just art. Pure, sincere. Real, unlike your family's misunderstanding and control. Yet unveiling your secrets was far from complete. As authorities led Brooke away, she paused, observing me with an unfamiliar emotion. "Respect. You remind me of someone I once was," she confessed, "before my choice." What choice? I inquired, though apprehensive about the answer. Choosing to become the predator. Brooke's smile was filled with bitterness as she recalled. 30 years ago, I was quite like you, a thriving interior designer with my own enterprise until I encountered Charles. Richard Harrison's father. He dismantled my business, isolated me, and ensnared me exactly as we've done to others. Nearby, Matthew, handcuffed, raised his head sharply. Mother, he interjected. But Brooke disregarded her son, pressing on. I observed and learned, and after Charles's death, I assure you it wasn't by chance. I aimed to wield his weapon against others. Richard remained oblivious, thinking he'd married a socialite, never realizing I improved upon his father's strategy, making it even more advanced and lucrative. The realization struck like a physical force. You were merely the initial victim, I stated, correcting myself. I became the last and the very first initiator. Every woman we targeted, every enterprise we obliterated, I had chosen them because they mirrored me, strong-willed, independent, competent. Watching them achieve what I had failed to was unbearable, Brooke admitted. Claire approached, her FBI badge gleaming. Mrs. Harrison, save these confessions for your formal declaration. Yet Brooke persisted. Examine the structure's foundations, she directed, eyes meeting mine. Not the family foundation, but the actual edifices, the lake house, the main house, all of them. Charles instructed Richard about vaults, yet I imparted lessons on secrets, embedding them within our empire's very walls. A young FBI agent, consulting a tablet, noted, Ma'am, thermal scans reveal anomalies in these buildings. The basement indicates multiple concealed rooms. Impossible, Matthew protested, appearing perplexed. I know every corner of these houses. Brooke allowed herself a restrained laugh. Did you never question why the same construction company handled every renovation and why certain areas were off-limits? Richard fancied himself astute with his evidence, never realizing my own collection amassed beneath his feet, a 3-decade secret encased in concrete and steel. Reflecting on the Harrison properties I assisted redesigning over the years, abiding by Brooke's stringent structural conditions made sense. What lies within those rooms? Claire inquired. Everything, Brooke answered assuredly. Every plot, every victim, every crime since Charles's time. I preserved it all. Not merely insurance, but driven by something resembling remorse, she spared Matthew a fleeting glance. She continued, acknowledging a yearning for something, someone strong enough to break the cycle. In my study at the main house, behind the Monet, is a safe. The combination? The date Charles died, Brooke narrated. Inside is a letter penned the day I realized Matthew was on the way. Read it. You'll comprehend why it was you, Rebecca. As they escorted Brooke away, I informed Claire about reaching the safe first. Our journey to the main Harrison house is hazy. The FBI worked swiftly, locating and unlocking the safe, uncovering a single, time-worn envelope. Labeled simply, to the one who ends it. The letter reshaped my understanding of Brooke, the cycle of power and abuse, and the true price of vengeance, but more importantly, it revealed the path forward. Not solely for me, but for every woman wronged by the Harrisons. Brooke hadn't merely safeguarded evidence, she held something far greater. The means to amend all wrongs. With trembling hands, I read Brooke's words in her study, Claire and Kate beside me. Despite the fragile paper, the message was clear, in Brooke's distinct yet unsteady script. To the woman who finally stops me, if you're reading this, you have chosen justice over power, healing over revenge. I write this while feeling my unborn son stir inside me, questioning my future roles. What kind of mother, what sort of monster I might become. Within the hidden compartments of every Harrison estate lies more than evidence, its bank accounts, property deeds, trust funds, a fortune amassed from shattered dreams. Charles destroyed not just businesses, but appropriated them, reconstructing his empire from women's broken lives. I refined his blueprint, consequently becoming worse than my abuser. Yet, I achieved more, something Charles and Richard never uncovered. Every business we demolished. Every woman we dismantled had another record, a true account of their value. I did more than document. I replicated every deed, every account, every asset. A shadow version, all legally binding, all concealed. Attached is a key for a safety deposit box at First National Bank. Inside is everything necessary to return what was taken, plus interest. I told myself it was insurance, but truly, it was a preserved hope, waiting for discovery, waiting for strength. You're reading this because you were stronger than I, you fought back, maintained your humanity. Use this wisely, better than I did. Brooke Harrison, April 15th, 1990. 3 months later, I found myself in the newly renovated Harrison Foundation building, now the Eyes Open Foundation for Women's Economic Justice. As promised, the hidden rooms unveiled means to restore all the Harrison stole, but also revealed unintended surprises. Ready? Kate queried, adjusting the sign above the foundation's entrance. I nodded, observing the women gathering, former victims, now survivors, each with narratives of loss and resilience. They were not here merely for restitution, but to guide, ensuring history wasn't repeated. Leah, now in remission due to proper medical care funded by the recovered assets, stood beside me. Did you foresee this when marrying Matthew? She questioned.
No.
I confessed, watching Claire lead a workshop on financial abuse recognition, and never anticipated Brooke aiding in its correction. The final hidden journal entry, written the night prior to the restaurant confrontation, simply noted, I see myself in Rebecca, but I see who I could have been, who I should have been. Perhaps one last choice remains. Both Matthew and Brooke took plea bargains that facilitated prosecuting others within their scheme. With Leah's lighthouse painting gracing my office, formerly Brooke's study, I comprehended why she painted a dual image, truth above, reflecting a deeper truth below, similar to Brooke's final act reflecting her original self before fear and rage consumed her. My phone buzzed with a text from Kate. Another victim from Charles's era is ready to tell her story. Gazing below at the women, I saw each carrying their beacon out of darkness. Brooke's final gift wasn't only restoring what was lost, it broke a generational abuse cycle. Come along, I replied before departing my office. Glancing one last time at Leah's painting, the sun could be seen rising or setting, an ending and a beginning all at once, mirroring the restaurant night when a glass of wine, intended to humiliate, set me free. The worst events sometimes lead to our greatest purpose, transforming deep wounds into strength. In the darkest tales, an unexpected light can guide us and help others find their way too.